Hey everybody, this is Joe Pace and welcome to the 3 reasons why you can't handstand. And I don't mean to be a jerk, but these things are super common, so there's a chance that one of these 3 things that I'm going to mention is something going on with your handstand. The 3 reasons are you're working too hard, the second reason is you're rushing, and the third reason is you're afraid. Those are the 3 reasons, okay? And there's some symptoms of these 3 reasons that I see all the time, and they're things that I want to clear up for you today so you have a better understanding of how to correct them and also how to move into handstand without having these obstacles in your way. Okay, so the first one, you're working too hard. This is all about just principles of handstand and handstand alignment. The key symptom of this is bent elbows in your handstand. And there's a bunch of reasons for this. A lot of people will teach take your hands wide for handstand. A lot of people don't even mention what's going on in the elbows in handstand when it's being taught. What happens when you bend your elbows is you bring all of the work into your arms when you should really be thinking about how can I work as little as possible in handstand. Because ultimately we want to hold it for a long time, and when we're using our muscles, we're building fatigue and we're building lactic acid in the muscle, and so it gets harder and harder over time to hold yourself in a single position. So we want to work as little as possible in the arms. We'll introduce the concept now of stacking. When we stack, we're light. And what we want to stack are our joints. The key joints in the upper body that we care most about in handstand are the wrists, the elbows, and the shoulders. All of these points are points you should be thinking about. They should be completely vertical and stacked on top of one another at all times in your handstand. So when you plant your hands down, before you even jump into handstand, think about how you can keep them all stacked on top of one another. My wrists literally should be directly underneath my shoulders, and you'll notice when I have straight elbows, my elbow is a center point, but in that line. So a straight line from shoulder to wrist. When I bend my elbow, I no longer have that stacked position. I no longer have that elbow as the middle point. When I extend, now I'm stacking joints on top of one another. There's nowhere for my elbow to go if I'm extending it fully, which means that I don't have to use my upper body muscles as much. So both arms should be doing that simultaneously. We have shoulders over wrists with extended elbows, and a few other alignment principles just so you know them. Index fingers should be parallel to one another, which makes the wrists parallel with the front of the mat, which is going to protect your wrists and allow you to hold the pose for a longer period of time. So now we don't have to work as hard when we're in our handstand. We have shoulders over elbows over wrists, and this is how they should stay the whole time. Ultimately, when you come into the full handstand, you're stacking even more joints: wrists, elbows, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles, toes. All of those joints should be in a straight line, and you should be thinking about that as you start to work towards handstand. So the second point is you're rushing. Everybody's excited to jump into handstand. Everybody wants to do it immediately. They don't want to work towards it. And it seems like something that when I watch it being done, it seems like it's just this big rush frenzy to just get into the pose. This is a recipe for disaster. It's what forces you to really struggle in the pose. And so a key principle that I notice and a key thing that I notice is legs flailing when you're upside down. So ultimately, when you rush into the pose, you don't have much time to figure out where vertical is. And so when you jump and you're in a rush, the legs are constantly trying to find that vertical point. It probably doesn't get found, and you come crashing down. Most likely with bent elbows too, but that's a whole other thing. So when you're not rushing, you give yourself a chance to really choose what you're going to do with your legs. And when the legs aren't flailing, there's more control, there's more composure, and there's more strength in the pose. When you're approaching handstand, think about your entry. Before you even make the move, before you even go, think about what you're going to be doing with your legs and think about what they're going to be looking like overhead. I strongly recommend going with a tick-tock position. So as we talked about, my elbows are straight, my hands are shoulders width. And with tick-tock, you're thinking about your legs as hands of a clock. I'm going to bend one knee, and without flinging this top leg, because I don't want to flip over, I'm going to reach this top leg towards the ceiling, kick up with legs split, and then come down. You'll notice my legs weren't flailing. I didn't get into handstand, but I came out with composure, and I can jump back into it if I want to.
So I'm bending one leg, I'm lifting the other, and then legs split. I'm not flailing, I'm reaching both legs. Even if I didn't get here, I would have control. My legs are pointing, I'm stacking my hips over my shoulders, I'm shrugging my shoulders towards my ears. There's no flailing. I come out in just as much control as I did on the way in. So when you come in with control, you're bringing that feeling into the pose, and then you're also taking that same exact thing out of the pose. So when we're calm and controlled at the beginning, we're calm and controlled in the pose, we're calm and controlled out of the pose. That's what makes it a yoga pose as opposed to just some weird party trick. And the final reason why you can't do handstand right now is your fear. And I think fear is totally rational when it comes to handstand. We don't do it in our everyday lives. We have no reason to be familiar with it. And oftentimes we do it in the middle of a room with people looking at us. So it can be pretty freaky. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world. And the number one thing that I see that signals to me that the person is afraid of handstand is when they finally get up into the pose and they finally get there and they're finally balancing, they completely stop breathing. It's honestly it's so blaring and it's so blatant. You just see the person struggling, not breathing, just focus so much on the single point they're looking at on the floor to stay in the pose, and they don't have much time. They have about 3 seconds and they fall right back out. So when it comes to handstand, just like we were talking about before, you want to come in with a plan. You're coming in with a plan for your legs, you're coming in with a plan for your arms, you're coming up with a plan to make sure you continue breathing. So a great way to practice this is as you're working towards handstand right from the beginning, remember that deep breath is the priority no matter what yoga pose you're doing, and definitely including handstand. This also ties to our first point of working too hard. When you're not breathing, you're definitely going to be working obviously way too hard. You need to breathe to live. So hands will be shoulders width. As you jump into handstand, know that you're inhaling on the bent knee and exhaling as you kick up. As you get there, the breaths continue. Come out in control, land lightly, and I feel just as I did when I was coming in. I never lost my breath. It didn't really feel like a challenging physical exercise to me. It felt like just transitioning weight onto my hands. Those are the 3 things, and those are the keys that I hope you can start thinking about. Stop working so hard. All right, that's number 1. Just give yourself some alignment principles. Go in with a plan, no rushing. Give yourself some time. Give yourself a plan for your legs and every other part of your body. And then stop being afraid, okay? There's a video that you can check out on fear of handstand and how to fix that. But when you're in the pose, breathe. It's just like any other yoga pose. Use it to your advantage. Your breath is there to guide you, and your breath is there to carry you through so that you can hold your handstand for as long as you'd like.